This is land of Havilah, 1 Kings 6. 480 years before Solomon, Moses built a house for Yahweh with an earthen floor, Numbers 5:17, boards for walls, linen for doors, a ceiling of linen, and coverings of animal skins for the roof. It was the tabernacle, Exodus 25 and 26. They constructed it at the base of Mount Sinai in less than 9 months, Exodus 19:1 and 40:17. It was portable to accommodate the Israelites as they moved from place to place in the desert. As soon as Moses died, Israel entered the Promised Land and brought the tabernacle with them. It's been set up in Shiloh, Judges 18:31, Shechem, Joshua 24:25 and 26, and now during Solomon's time, it's in Gibeon near Jerusalem, 1 Chronicles 21:29 and 1 Kings 3:4. Either Yahweh has preserved the tabernacle supernaturally all this time, or they've been replacing various elements of it as needed. But now, according to Yahweh's instructions to David, 1 Kings 5:5, and David's instructions to Solomon, it's time to build a solid structure to replace the portable one. We know it as Solomon's temple, but Israel knew it as the house of Yahweh, 1 Kings 3:1. It was Yahweh's house because in some manner or other Yahweh will be there. Solomon knew that a house couldn't contain the God of the universe, 1 Kings 8:27, but he's hoping that Yahweh will be particularly attentive to it, that, quote, your eyes may be open to this house day and night, 2 Chronicles 6:20, to hear prayers prayed toward it. When he gets the house finished, he'll invite Yahweh to, quote, arise into your resting place, 2 Chronicles 6:41. When Moses finished the tabernacle, a cloud covered it, and Yahweh's glory filled it so that Moses couldn't go in, Exodus 40:35. And the priest never went into the inner room, the Holy of Holies, without elaborate preparations, according to Leviticus chapter 16, because Yahweh said he would appear in a cloud over the ark, and the priest would be in danger of death, Leviticus 16:2. With the building of the tabernacle, Yahweh said he would dwell with the Israelites, Exodus 29:45. And the tabernacle was the focal point of that presence of Yahweh, especially in the inner room, the Holy of Holies, especially above the ark, Exodus 25:22. Since there were awesome, tangible manifestations of Yahweh's presence when they finished the tabernacle, Exodus 40:35, the question is no doubt in Solomon's mind, what's going to happen when I finish this house? David made extensive preparations for it. He prepared the plans by the Spirit, 1 Chronicles 28:12, so it's an inspired undertaking. He also laid up materials and identified craftsmen, 1 Chronicles 22:14 through 16. But it's up to Solomon to get it done. Verse 1. In the 480th year after the children of Israel had come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month Ziv, which is the 2nd month, he began to build Yahweh's house. Comment, Solomon has been on the throne 4 years. The date is now about 966 BC. In the month Ziv, which corresponds to April or May, he's beginning construction. Verse 2, the house which King Solomon built for Yahweh had a length of 60 cubits and its width 20 and its height 30 cubits. Comment, the footprint of the main section was 90 feet by 30 feet, the same as a professional basketball court, but not as wide. However, there will be a porch on the front and storage rooms on the sides and back, which will make the total footprint the same width as a basketball court and 25 feet longer. The height is 45 feet, which will be the same as an office building 4.5 stories tall. Verse 3. The porch in front of the temple of the house had a length of 20 cubits, which was along the width of the house. 10 cubits was its width in front of the house. Comment, the front door is going to be on one end where a basketball goal would sit. The porch ran across the entire front and added 15 feet to the length of the building. Verse 4. He made windows of fixed lattice work for the house. Comment, the windows had to be high, over 22 feet above the floor, because there are going to be side rooms coming up that far. There's no glass as there would be now, only wooden lattice work. Verse 5. Against the wall of the house he built floors all around, against the walls of the house all around, both of the temple and of the inner sanctuary, and he made side rooms all around. The lowest floor was 5 cubits wide, and the middle was 6 cubits wide, and the third was 7 cubits wide, for on the outside he made offsets in the wall of the house all around, that the beam should not be inserted into the walls of the house. Comment: it's better to get ahead of the text here with some descriptions. To enter the building, the priest would ascend a set of steps to a porch, then go through a set of double doors. These doors were jointed like bifold doors to make 4 panels total. And once in the doors, he'd be in a room with a 45-foot ceiling, left to right 30 feet and straight ahead 60 feet, so a very large room called the Holy Place. While still standing in the entrance, the priest would see a giant curtain or veil at the far end of the room 60 feet ahead. That partitioned off or veiled off a somewhat smaller space called the Holy of Holies, which is also translated the Most Holy Place or Inner Sanctuary. That smaller room behind the veil would house the Ark of the Covenant. That space was a 30-foot cube, meaning 30 feet high, long, and wide. The priest wouldn't be able to access the side rooms from either of the main rooms. He'd have to go back outside and enter a side door. The side rooms had 3 levels: first floor, second floor, third floor. But even with 3 levels, they weren't as tall as the main part of the building. In verse 6, with regard to the side rooms, there had to be support for the floors of the second and third levels. To get that support, they didn't insert beams into the wall of the main building. Instead, they stacked independent columns of stone outside the main walls to create offsets, as verse 6 calls them, or ledges. That way, the main part of the building remained unviolated. The ledges supported horizontal wood beams, so they didn't have to make any cutouts or apertures in the walls of the main section. Verse 7. The house, when it was under construction, was built of stone prepared at the quarry, and no hammer or axe or any tool of iron was heard in the house while it was under construction. Comment: interesting. They were dealing with massive stones and massive wooden beams, but there was hardly any construction noise at the site. Verse 8. The door for the middle side rooms was in the right side of the house. Comment: this is the one entry from outside to the side rooms. The main entry was on the east, and the entry to the side rooms was on the right. Whose right, we don't know, but either on the south or north. Still in verse 8, they went up by winding stairs into the middle floor and out of the middle into the third. Comment: because there was only one door from the outside to the side rooms, the stairs to the second and third floors had to be on the inside. Verse 6, so he built the house and finished it, and he covered the house with beams and planks of cedar. Comment: the interior had cedar paneling and wood beams above, but let's not visualize any wood on the interior because every bit of it was covered with hammered gold, including the paneling, the beams of the ceiling, the doors, and even the thresholds, and the entire floor, 1 Kings 6:30. However, before they put the gold on the walls and doors, they engraved patterns into the wood: palm trees, cherubim, flowers, and buds. Absolutely stunning. This is all thanks to the supplies David laid up. Verse 10, he built the floors all along the house, each 5 cubits high, and they rested on the house with timber of cedar. Comment: the side rooms had 7.5-foot ceilings. The second and third floors were supported by cedar beams resting on stone ledges. Verse 11, Yahweh's word came to Solomon, saying, concerning this house which you are building, if you will walk in my statutes and execute my ordinances and keep all my commandments to walk in them, then I will establish my word with you, which I spoke to David your father. I will dwell among the children of Israel and will not forsake my people Israel. Comment: God's glory departed from Israel about 100 years earlier when the priests Hophni and Phinehas were abusing the sacrifices, 1 Samuel 4:21. Ever since then, the ark has been separated from the tabernacle. But now Yahweh says in verses 12 and 13, if you walk in my statutes, I will dwell among you. The glory will return. Verse 14. So Solomon built the house and finished it. He built the walls of the house within with boards of cedar, from the floor of the house to the walls of the ceiling. He covered them on the inside with wood, and he covered the floor of the house with cypress boards. Comment: the floor was wood, probably supported by solid stone. But let's not think it had a wood look. Even the floor was covered with gold, 1 Kings 6:30. By the way, the temple is being built in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, 2 Chronicles 3:1, where 1100 years before, Yahweh told Abraham to offer up Isaac in sacrifice, Genesis 22:2. That was a foundational act of faith, and now Yahweh's honoring Abraham's faith by making his house there. So while Solomon is honoring Yahweh in the building of the house, Yahweh is honoring Abraham's act of faith. This same spot is famous for another event. It later became the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite, 2 Chronicles 3:1. Back when David took a census of Israel, 2 Samuel 24, there was a plague on Israel. The death angel relented from bringing the plague at this spot, the threshing floor of Ornan, 2 Samuel 24:16. The prophet Gad instructed David to purchase that spot and build an altar. So that's how it came into Solomon's hands. So this spot has already been the place of a foundational act of faith, of the salvation of Isaac, of the salvation of all Israel, and of atonement for all Israel, and now the temple will be built there. Verse 16. He built 20 cubits on the back part of the house with boards of cedar from the floor to the ceiling. He built them for it within for an inner sanctuary, even for the most holy place. Comment, the most holy place was in the back of the main section on the west in a perfect 30-foot cube paneled with engraved wood, all covered with hammered gold. Verse 17. In front of the temple sanctuary was 40 cubits. Comment, the larger room was 60 feet long. Verse 18. There was cedar on the house within, carved with buds and open flowers. All was cedar. No stone was visible. Comment, no stone or wood visible, just engraved wood covered with gold. 2 Chronicles 3:7. Verse 19. He prepared an inner sanctuary in the middle of the house within to set the ark of Yahweh's covenant there. Within the inner sanctuary was 20 cubits in length and 20 cubits in width and 20 cubits in height, and he overlaid it with pure gold, and he covered the altar with cedar. Comment, the most holy place again was a 30-foot cube with gold overlay. 1 Chronicles 3:8 says there were 600 talents of gold overlay in the most holy place. That's right about $1 billion worth of gold at today's prices. And the holy place has 3 times the surface area, so there's at least $4 billion in gold between the 2 main rooms. Verse 21. So Solomon overlaid the house within with pure gold. He drew chains of gold across before the inner sanctuary, and he overlaid it with gold. Comment, there were gold chains across the front of the veil, probably at about waist level, to serve as a little bit more barrier between the holy place and the inner sanctuary. Verse 22. He overlaid the whole house with gold until all the house was finished. Comment, presumably the gold overlay was on the interior only. Still in verse 22. He also overlaid the whole altar that belonged to the inner sanctuary with gold. Comment, this is the altar for burning incense, verse 23. In the inner sanctuary he made 2 cherubim of olive wood, each 10 cubits high. 5 cubits was the wing of one cherub, and 5 cubits the other wing of the cherub. From the tip of one wing to the tip of the other was 10 cubits. The other cherub was 10 cubits. Both of the cherubim were of one measure and one form. One cherub was 10 cubits high, and so was the other cherub. He set the cherubim within the inner house. The wings of the cherubim were stretched out so that the wing of the one touched the one wall, and the wing of the other cherub touched the other wall, and the wings touched one another in the middle of the house. He overlaid the cherubim with gold. Comment, they put the cherubim in the most holy place. This will eventually house the Ark of the Covenant. On the right and left side of the ark there are 2 giant cherubim, which are heavenly creatures that surround the throne of heaven, Ezekiel 10. They're 15 feet high, half the height of the room, and their wings are spread out. As the priest enters the most holy place, the cherubim will be facing his direction. Their wingspan is 15 feet each, so the 2 of them side by side span the entire room from wall to wall, with their wingtips touching in the center of the room, perhaps the exact center, 15 feet from the floor and from the ceiling and from each of the 4 walls. In verse 23, they're made of olive wood, and verse 28, overlaid with gold. Verse 29, he carved all the walls of the house around with carved figures of cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers inside and outside. He overlaid the floor of the house with gold inside and outside. Comment, inside and outside probably means inside the main rooms and outside the main rooms, which would be the side rooms. gold-covered floors and walls, even in the side rooms. Now for the doors to the most holy place, verse 31. For the entrance of the inner sanctuary he made doors of olive wood. The lintel and doorposts were a fifth part of the wall. Comment: there's no mention of the veil in this chapter. We don't find out about it until 2 Chronicles 3:14. But as mentioned here, there were doors of olive wood leading from the first room to the second. Since a veil obviously wouldn't be able to support the placement of doors, there had to be some sort of solid structure to support the doors. Therefore, it's not surprising that this verse mentions a wall which had to be alongside the veil. So there was some wall and some veil separating the rooms, probably mostly veil, and at least enough wall to support the doors. More details about this coming in chapter 8, verse 32. So he made 2 doors of olive wood, and he carved on them carvings of cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers, and overlaid them with gold. He spread the gold on the cherubim and on the palm trees. Comment: nice doors. There were 2 of them, presumably opening from the middle like French doors. Now for the exterior door from the porch to the holy place, verse 33. He also did so for the entrance of the temple, doorposts of olive wood out of a fourth part of the wall, and 2 doors of cypress wood. The 2 leaves of the one door were folding, and the 2 leaves of the other door were folding. He carved cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers, and he overlaid them with gold fitted on the engraved work. Comment: the main entry had 2 bifold doors, which is a total of 4 panels. Coming up, the building wasn't sitting out in the open. It had a wall around it, which created an inner court, verse 36. He built the inner court with 3 courses of cut stone and a course of cedar beams. Comment: we'd need more detail to visualize the wall of the inner court very well, verse 37. The foundation of Yahweh's house was laid in the 4th year in the month Ziv. In the 11th year, in the month Bul, which is the 8th month, the house was finished throughout all its parts and according to all its specifications. So he spent 7 years building it. Comment: it took 7 years and 6 months from the laying of the foundation to the finish. 1 Kings 7 is next at landofhavilah.net. 1 Kings 7.